Hi everyone, we are back with another season one story. This is where we get to give our incredible season one members, give them the floor, give them the ability to talk about their own journeys, talk about their own challenges. Essentially, our members are going to be occupying football in the future. They're going to be the ones pushing and innovating. So we want to give everybody the platform. So today's season one session, we're with the incredible Aryan. Aryan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm very well. We're in the midst of a heat wave at the minute, so I think
Yeah.
we're both trying to actively avoid the 30 something
Yeah.
the 30 something degrees. So yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on. As I said, like this is your opportunity. This is our opportunity to get to know you, give you some visibility into the football industry. So for all of those listening in, give us an introduction to you, who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So I'm Aryan. I'm just finished university actually. I went to UCL, did history. So nothing really kind of related to the whole football journalism, football media thing that I want to get into. But I have been kind of just doing stuff on the side for a long time, really. I started my own blog when I was in sixth form, actually. And that wasn't even with a route to going into kind of journalism or sports or anything. It was more of just a side project, a passion project. Did that for 6 months on and off because it was my final year at school. So I was kind of balancing it with A levels as well. Then in the summer, I was scrolling on Twitter one day and I saw an advert for a freelance company called the Real EFL. They're looking for writers to join. Obviously, at this point, I'd built a little bit of kind of a portfolio, just a very small starting piece. But it was still enough to kind of say, look, I've done this. Can I please join? Can I see where this goes? And then, yeah, I ended up spending 2 years at the Real EFL. I think pretty much 2 years to the day as well, just freelancing and doing all sorts of things, really. News aggregation, evergreen pieces, opinion pieces, predictions pieces. And yeah, I learned so much there because I was working with actual kind of professional journalists, people who'd been doing, the kind of freelance gigs for like decades, pretty much. I was able to get so much advice from them. I was able to get so many opportunities as well. I went to QPR 3 times over 25, 26 preseason and 24, 25 preseason. And yeah, that was amazing. And that was just one of the editors saying like, look, does anyone want to go out to games during pre-season? We'll see if we can get you in, because obviously I think accreditation works slightly different. It's more of just a email and then you might be able to get in type thing. Then yeah, so I was with the Real EFL for 2 years. I'd say in the last kind of 6 months of that, so like January 2025, obviously at that point I was exactly halfway through uni as well. And I kind of realized like, right, I'm here, I'm at uni, but the next step is the real world, and I need to kind of find myself a path, something that I want to do. And I know a lot of people kind of go into uni and like they kind of think, oh yeah, like I'll do auditing, I'll do finance or consultancy or whatever, but I never really found the motivation or the desire to do that. Because I felt like I needed to put myself on a path at that point, obviously knowing what the job market is like, knowing how competitive everything is, and give myself that time to be able to build thinking 18 months into the future. And so yeah, I decided really to kind of get a lot more serious with the writing, with the journalism stuff. I really kind of tried to ramp up what I did with the Real FL in those final few months. I also joined another freelance company, Last Word on Football. I was a Manchester City correspondent there. That was my technical title, although I could have written on other teams if I'd wanted to. Again, just more experience, more writing, more opportunities to write and opportunities to learn, especially because they're an American-based company. So
Sure.
just kind of looking at those slight intricacies and the way that different kind of brands worked, I think that was a really valuable experience. Then I left all of that in August. So I moved away from the Rio EFL, I moved away from Last Word on Football, and I joined the Football Deck, another freelance company. This time I went from kind of just being a base level writer, which is what I worked my way up to after probationary periods, to being co-head of writing. Which is a big step, but I think that my kind of 2-3 month stint there, I learned so much just from being on the other side of the door, like understanding the editorial conversations, understanding, basically how like journalism works from the other side. I was really grateful for what they let me do there, to be fair, because they kind of let me run the show essentially as much as I could. Obviously I asked for advice. I needed the advice at some point, but yeah, I was doing content planning for the non-transfer window part of the season. I was writing style guides. I did a little bit of podcasting as well. It was only as I said, a couple of months, 3 months, but it was just a really good, intense learning period, which I think was really useful for my writing skills. After that, I've kind of moved on a lot to doing media work this season. Just because I feel like multimedia and video and social media is a long-term future. I think that, it's good to have written skills, and I'm happy that I've got the written skills, but I think it was important to kind of round off my skill set by having that kind of social media experience. So yeah, I've worked with Wealdstone in the National League. Yeah, literally just sent out a few emails to local teams. Can I volunteer as part of your media team? Yeah, and I kind of went into these clubs with the basis of, I can provide you value in the writing. Can you then provide me help and experience and learning opportunities in the multimedia stuff? And that's been amazing, to be fair, my time at Wealdstone. Everyone's been really supportive. They've pretty much let me do what I want to do as well. Let me develop what I want to develop. The opportunities I've got just by being in such a professional landscape as well. They're hybrid, but they're in the National League, right? So they're still happy to take on like these volunteers who are just kids that want experience. Whereas, if you went to like a Watford or something like that, they wouldn't take you on, because ultimately the level of output and the quality of output they require it's not something that you'll be able to produce. And they therefore wouldn't take you on. But yeah, Wealdstone has been unbelievable. I then used my contacts at Wealdstone to get me into the Baller League with United. That's been an absolute whirlwind, to be fair. I think it works slightly differently to traditional football in almost every aspect, right? They're not training every day, yet they still go into these, multi-thousand arenas and play 1,000 fans. They have, 70, 80,000 more on the YouTube stream. And yeah, that was a really good experience as well, because also the staff structure, I think, was quite different. It wasn't like a traditional kind of football club where you have like your head of media, and then maybe if you're a big club, you have like videography, editorial, social media, or whatever, or you have head of media, and then you just have, media execs and then volunteers or whatever. It was all a lot more horizontal. So like there was someone who's like in charge of the socials, but realistically, like everyone was kind of on a pretty similar level. Everyone kind of wanted to get their output the most airtime on the main accounts. And yeah, that taught me a lot about kind of communication, taught me a lot about adaptability, because obviously, as I've said, my background was written journalism, whereas in Borland, like nothing is written, pretty much, literally nothing is written. So yeah, I was able to adapt, find my niche. I did a lot of interviewing. That was kind of my thing, United. And yeah, that pretty much brings me to here. I've been doing some freelancing for City Extra as well, just to keep the writing ticking over. But yeah, I'm now at this stage where everything's kind of finished in like the space of about 3 days. The Baller League season finished, the Wealdstone season's finished, and university is finished. I'm liberated in a way, I guess.
Amazing. I mean, for such a short period of time, what an incredible kind of breadth of experience, and similar with the opportunities being across different parts of the sport. Why did you get into writing as a vertical in football? Because obviously, you've moved into the kind of modern, I say that as an old man, but like the kind of modern journalism with the social media and everything else. But what made you start out with written media?
So, well, I guess when I was like 11, 12 years old, there's a lot of people in my generation where we were trying to be like the next KSI on YouTube and that sort of stuff, and I was absolutely useless at it, to be honest with you. So I was like, yeah, that kind of left me a bit in limbo on the whole social media thing for a while. And then I took my academic direction, which was, so at A level I did history, economics, politics. I did English literature at AS as well. So all very essay orientated subjects, right? I wasn't really doing any maths calculations or proofs or science experiments or anything like that. Everything was pretty much written. And yeah, I kind of just thought like, right, I'm quite good at writing. Like I've got the skill set based off my kind of academic foundation. Let me just do it and see where it takes me. So yeah, I guess in short, I would say it was probably grounded in my academic foundation.
Yeah, amazing, and that has so much value. And I think the written word is still going to have that value in the long term. It's amazing what actually sitting and thinking about how you write, and I'm sure you, as much as anybody else, would have been tempted by. What are your thoughts on AI while we're touching on it, as kind of pertains to your written work?
Yeah, I never write anything with AI. I will admit, recently I've been using the kind of Google AI search as just kind of like my normal search mode. So I am kind of slowly integrating it into like my workflow, if you want to use the technical term. But yeah, I'm not personally writing things with AI. I know like I've had experience with people, they've said like, oh, sometimes I try and use like AI to create catchy titles, but I think even once or twice when I tried that, titles just haven't been as good
Mm.
as what I've thought of in my head. In terms of the social media and use of AI, again, I've tried it a couple of times. I've tried it as a kind of like a Photoshop graphic design type thing, because that's, again, it's not really something I've done loads of. But I think that the problem with using AI on social media is that it's that little flag mark where it says like, oh, this post has been generated using AI or something. And I feel like whenever I put use AI, in my posts, and whenever that mark comes up, the viewership on them and the engagement on them tends to be lower. So I've kind of tried using it a little bit in social media, but I don't think that algorithms, and I don't think the world is quite ready for me to use it on any sort of noticeable scale, really.
I think we're coming into a very interesting time. I'm a cautious optimist when it comes to AI, and coming from the creative industry as well. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think a lot of people are not necessarily utilizing it in the right way in terms of their like workflow at the minute. It's kind of like we'll chat, it'll give us an output. What do we do with it, kind of thing? Whereas actually saying, okay, the output really is mine. So if, you mentioned there about graphic design. This is a big bone of contention, right? Across
Mm-hmm.
you see it
Yeah.
LinkedIn, across socials. There's this like harsh backlash against anything that's AI produced.
Yeah.
And I think what's missing in this conversation is this kind of middle ground. It's either like at the minute, it's like you're either using it or you're not using it. And people saying if you're not using it, you're left behind. If you're using it, then you're a dick, basically. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
But actually, like the middle ground here is saying, okay, if you're a graphic designer, how can AI help me create assets that will go into a piece that I'll produce? So like
Mm-hmm.
previously, like I would say like a few years ago, you'd be scratching around for an entire afternoon to find a stock image, right, to use.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now you can create certain assets or parts of an image that can go into your composition that's
Mm-hmm.
being built by you. But I think what's happening is people are just creating a composition using AI
Yeah.
and everything out
Yeah.
there, which is why we're getting this generic style, which is why we're getting
Mm-hmm.
backlash. I saw one actually this morning with Colgate. Colgate put out an entirely AI produced image, and people are just shooting it down. So I think we're at a very funny time. I think conversation and use needs to kind of adapt and change, because at the end of the day, it's going to be here and for me, be an ally, to the work we do. We just have to learn how to use it. But it's really, really interesting. With you mentioned there about your experience, and you've got this, like, for someone so young, without being patronizing, like a crazy amount of experience, right? And breadth. And a lot of the members that we have at season one, who are in probably similar position to you, they're kind of navigating now post grad, getting themselves out into the world. How do you go about doing things like your outreach and networking? Because it's something that's such a big, I think, kind of anxiety trigger, imposter syndrome trigger
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of young people out in the work. Like, tell us a little bit about your kind of process when you're looking to find a new opportunity.
Yeah. So I think social media is or has been a really useful tool for me, to be fair. Like I said, with the real EFL, I was scrolling on Twitter. I saw a journalist, kind of acquaintance of mine who I follow on Twitter, had reposted the advert. So, I kind of knew it was going to be vaguely reputable, right? I knew it wasn't going to be some sort of recruitment scam. And then, yeah, from there, I kind of just made contacts within those companies. So the person who originally got me in at the real EFL was the person who then got me in at the football deck. The person who got me, well, not, then Wheelstone, I cold emailed at first, to be fair, which I think is another really useful tool. And at Wheelstone, yeah, so I cold emailed, and I did that with a couple more clubs as well, to be fair, but Wheelstone were the ones who kind of reached out to me the quickest and were the most receptive of my offer. I then befriended the head coach there, a guy called Sam Cox, really top guy. And then he's the head coach of United, who are the team I work for in the Baller League. So that's kind of how I moved from Wheelstone to also being with United as well. Yeah, so I guess the key is, like, obviously at actual networking events, just making sure I go out and I kind of put my hand out and I say, hi, I'm Aryan. Like, can you tell me about what you do? Making sure you get contact details for them as well. But yeah, I think a lot of my opportunities, to be fair, have come from either cold emailing or from just kind of taking like little leaps of faith, not nothing massive, but taking a little leap of faith, and then knowing and getting to know the people who are in those companies. And then when they move on to do other things, seeing if maybe sometime in the future there'll be an opportunity for me to kind of get my way in there as well, because it might develop me as a person.
What you're saying is that building relationships is
Hmm.
super, super important. And we understand the urgency for people to go out into the world and get these opportunities and get experience. But actually the value here is in I guess two things. One, creating the relationship and nurturing that takes a little bit
Hmm.
of time,
Yeah. Yeah.
persistent. And the other part of it is then creating the quality of work, essentially doing what you say you're going to do.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's not something that comes naturally to a lot of people, right? This kind of outreach and networking. What are the
Hmm.
lessons you've learned through this process of gaining this expertise and gaining this kind of breadth of opportunity? When not necessarily like written journalism is your thing, right? That was kind of the foundation. But
Hmm.
now you're working across different types of media, and a lot of people will say, well, why would they take me because I don't have experience? Like, what
Hmm.
lessons that you've learned, like going from purely written to now going into other parts of that kind of creator economy, I guess.
I think it's that you can always offer something to someone, and I think it's just about finding what you can offer and articulating that. I know people might say like, "Oh, how can I offer written skills to someone if I have never joined a company?" You have to start yourself. I think that's the base. You have to start building your portfolio yourself. And yeah, like I kind of exemplified, it doesn't always take that long before the opportunities then start coming to you. But the first thing is, yeah, I think needing to be able to show something that you can have a tangible body of work, a tangible portfolio that you can then adapt to show different companies, different individuals. Actually, look, I've done this, so I could help your company do this. And then what I'm hoping to gain from your company is this, which is like a third factor. And then by doing that, so you've got that one skill, you've now got this job, you've got another skill, bang, now you've got two skills. And you can just, I think I've kind of just kept like rinsing and repeating that cycle. So now I've got social media. And I can say to these companies, oh, look, I can do social media. Maybe you can help me with, I don't know, video editing or graphic design or something
Yeah.
like that. So yeah, I think the key is just starting with a base and then being able to articulate your skills and then I guess using that to chain up and develop more skills.
That's a really lovely way to articulate it, actually, and actually saying, I've got X skill, but I want Y skill. So I'm going to put myself in a position, whether that's, creating that part of that body of work myself. And this is really great for people who are in that kind of creator economy, creative sector, is we've got so many tools and the ability to just
Mhm.
create your own portfolio without it being, directly kind of employed or client facing work, is actually looking at your own skill set, which by the way is
Mhm.
I think it's incredibly mature and almost, I guess, beyond your years way of thinking about it, right? It's
Yeah.
like, what is the skill set I'm going to need to be a well-rounded
Mhm.
journalist, creator, and being willing, which is the other important piece, I guess, being willing to go out into the world and go, I'm going to gain experience. It's not always going to be paid. I'm going to go and actually have that value exchange
Mhm.
with a club
Mhm.
or organization, is go, look, if I can give you this and you've put it really well, here's what I'm inquiring about. I can give you this. This is what I would love to have from you. So, you put the example there. I'd love, I can do the social media piece. I'd love to work with your video editor to learn how to video edit. That's what I want
Mhm.
from you guys. And obviously that's super low lift and actually high value for the club. And it
Yeah.
gives you that opportunity to build a relationship. So for anyone listening to this, I think that's a lovely thing to do. It ties very much into some of the resources and that we've got in season one, is that, like, if you're having trouble trying to find out what the skills look like and where the gaps are, we've got skills gap map. We've got that adjacent industries map also, is actually going, here are the skills that I need. Here's where I can deploy those skills to then almost get back onto that path of that dream job,
Yeah.
as such. So it's a really, really lovely way to put it. Look into the future. What do you think the future holds, kind of for you, but also for that creator economy? Like, where do you see it?
I think so. I think for journalism in general, I think it's just going to get increasingly integrated with social media. And I think you're seeing it to an extent already. Like if you look at transfer rumors in football, right? Like realistically, no one is going on the Athletic website to look at transfer rumors in football. They're going on to Twitter or X and seeing what David Ornstein is posting, seeing what Fabrizio Romano is posting, right? So I think that's kind of already started happening. But I think soon we're just going to get like genuine football stories, genuine journalistic stories are just going to be posted in vertical video form on like TikTok they'll be condensed to a minute or two. I think like The Athletic do that really well already, to be fair. But I think, we'll start seeing more and more mainstream news companies. I know a couple do it, especially with their general news. But I think in the context of sports, that's just going to kind of keep ramping up and keep ramping up. And a lot of kind of either written articles will move to video form and go on social media, or kind of even like the TV, like feature length pieces that you sometimes see on like Sky Sports News, right? I think they'll increasingly start being published on social media. It's really interesting, right? Because obviously social media, if you kind of just want to do that, it's like you've not got a backing from like an organization or company, right? That's kind of what I want to do, right? Be part of a team. So I have that backing. It's also really easy to kind of just do everything off your own back and be like an independent, like legally self-employed, right? Just creator. And I think we'll see kind of a lot more of that, these kind of hybrid creator journalists. I think there already are quite a few who kind of just sit on their bed and then film like with their phone like that. But I think we'll see more and more of those. I think those kind of setups will start to get more and more professional. A bit like Dylan Page, the news guy. I think that's kind of what we'll start to see in terms of that sort of development. For me, I'm still pretty open, to be fair. I'm open to journalistic opportunities. I'm open to footballing opportunities. Obviously, I know the higher you get in the pyramid, the more specialized roles at clubs become. So whereas say, like if I was to stay at Wealdstone, I'd be a media assistant. I would be writing a match report one game, managing the twist of the next game, and then being pitch side filming vertical video the game after that. Whereas I know if I go higher, I might be a social media executive, and then at every game, all I'll do is film. Or I might be an editorial producer where all I do is write the match reports and copy their programs. I think what my experience has allowed me to do is kind of apply for both of those jobs, because I think I have a large enough body of work, a large enough skill set, and enough experience to basically be able to justify that I could do either job well enough. I'm very open to where I go, to be honest. As I've said, I love my time at Wealdstone. I know some people, especially when they're kind of first getting into it, if they've only watched like the Premier League for their whole life, they might kind of be a bit snobby, kind of get the people in the pub who are like, oh, I'm sure I could play 15 games in non-league or something like that. I really have respect for the ability of the players, but also kind of the community in non-league. But if you're a media guy, I feel like as a media guy in at a National League South club, you're part of like the first team's kind of social sphere. Yeah, which is something that I really enjoy and I would really be happy to stay in.
There's so many. I mean, this is coming from someone who played 400 games in the Conference South. There's so many opportunities non-league now, and I when I have chats with Ben and the team, my kind of Conference South career was pre all this like boom in attention and media teams in non-league, non-league clubs. And part of me wishes I was born 5 to 10 years later. It would have been incredible. And I think there's so many opportunities now for anybody listening here is kind of going, you all have your like dream roles that you'd love to have at Arsenal, Chelsea, City, and but the opportunity and value that you can bring to this kind of anywhere non-league now, like the town where I grew up, Farnham, like they've just had triple back to everyone hears about them now, right? They just got out from South. They're just going through a big investment round. All of a sudden now they're going to push to be a league club. Exactly. And they're just a super local. Just like a few years ago, no one heard about them. They've got this tiny little ground, and now they've got 2,500 people coming every week. Like there's incredible opportunities to build a body of work and actually be around this really intimate environment, which you just do not get in the program. So it's a really great way to hone your skills, whatever your vertical. Would always encourage people to go out. And these guys don't have big budgets, so they're more open, right? They're more open. My old club is in Stoke, and where I played 300 times, they've recently put out, and they're looking to bring people in, and like it's a really, really cool environment. So last question we ask everybody: if we were to start football again from scratch, what's the one thing that you would love to implement?
Affordability, I think, would be nice. I think money is what makes the world go round at the end of the day. So I'm saying affordability, but then clubs will say our revenue has gone down, we can't pay you as much as a media guy. But I do think that keeping prices in check will be the key to keeping football growing in the long run. We may have had concessionary season tickets at Premier League or local clubs or whatever. And now we're having to make that jump to paying full price. And, you know, for people who don't know, like, if they're even going to have a job, yeah, that like £300 that they just have to find is a lot of money. And it's a commitment that, yeah, some people can't make. It's a commitment that I actually did decide myself not to make. Part of the reason why I ended up at Wealdstone, to be fair. Yeah, so I think just making sure to keep a lid on everything so that as many people as possible can enjoy watching as much football as possible. Yeah, and I guess that could be TV as well. Like Sky these days is obviously very expensive. So yeah, just kind of keeping the game accessible financially through ticket prices, through TV deals, whatever. I think that's really important to the long-term future of football.
Love that. What a great way to end. Mate, thank you so much. That's so much insight for people. The way you kind of look at how you build your career bit by bit is super inspiring. And I think a lot of people will take a lot from this. So thank you so much for dropping in and talking to us.